This is a simple and lovely three-part qigong routine that can be practiced on its own or as preparation for further qigong practice. It integrates body, breath and mind. As far as the body is concerned, it helps us immerse our mind in our body and slowly, over weeks, months, even years, improve the elasticity of the fascial tissue of the body, restore it to a more youthful body, as well as, in Chinese medicine terms, lengthening and stimulating all the channels, all the acupuncture channels of the body. We learn how to deepen the breath. That means to slow it down and take it down to the lower abdomen. In modern terms, this is called diaphragmatic breathing. In traditional terms, it's called lower abdominal or dantian breathing. And finally, it helps us center the mind, calm the mind, and soothe the brain and the heart. So, as always, let's start by getting into the preparatory standing position. We stand with the feet shoulder width apart and the insides of the feet parallel, and then we release the knees. So we start to drop the centre of gravity. It's good at this time and actually throughout the practice to look down and check that we keep this rounded arch nice and open. If the arches of our feet are weak and the feet have a tendency to collapse into the centre, bringing the knees in, then when we do weight bearing with bent knees, over time, that can cause problems on the inside of the knee. So make sure this arch here is nice and rounded. And another way to check is, can you feel the outside of your foot from the little toe to the heel well connected with the floor? Okay, so we now start to experience the weight of the pelvic basin, and the more that we can release through all the big muscles of the thighs, hips, lower back and so on, the more we can release those, the more we can let the pelvic basin hang. We start to feel the weight of the pelvic basin dropping. We can feel how it starts to lengthen the spine downwards. Perhaps the easiest place to feel that is the space between the sacrum and the last lumbar vertebra. We feel that open. More space is created there. And then we can work our mind up through the spine, up to about the middle of the spine, feeling spaces between the vertebrae lengthen as the weight of the pelvic basin draws the lower part of the spine downwards. The weight drops down through the legs, through the upper legs, through the knees, through the lower leg, through the ankle, through the feet, and down into the earth. What we call the root, the earth. So when we feel we've really released downwards, down through the core, through the pelvic basin, the thighs, the knees, the lower legs, the ankles, the feet, and into the earth, rooting, feeling the lower and mid-spine gently being tugged downwards, lengthening the vertebra. Then we can start to lengthen up into heaven. So the first thing to do is to check the neck position. So lots of us, me included, have a tendency, an anatomical tendency, maybe a character tendency to thrust the chin forward and to increase the hollow of the neck. And we need to adjust that a bit. Otherwise, when we lengthen, what we end up doing is something like this. So we want to slightly flatten the neck. We can just say tuck the chin down. But I think it's better to identify this hollow at the base of the skull, where the neck vertebra, the seventh neck vertebra meets the skull. You can feel it very clearly there. And to take that backwards, away from the face. And we feel when we do that, that both slightly flattens the neck curve and also lengthens through the neck. Softly lengthening through the neck like a plant growing up to the sky, to heaven. And in the same way you might have felt the space between the sacrum and the last lumbar vertebra lengthening. In the same way we can feel that hollow, that's the space between the skull and the top of the spine, that lengthens upwards. And we feel them both at the same time. Rooted into the earth, connected up into heaven. So we've gently opened the body along its vertical plane, and now we can open horizontally. So first of all, we slide the shoulder blades away from each other, opening up the upper back. You can feel that the outside tips of the shoulders are travelling that way. And we feel a gentle lengthening across the top of the chest here, and similarly the top of the back at the same time. The armpits are open, shoulders and shoulder blades drop, and the arms relax. And then more subtle, we identify the outer edges of the hip bones, and can we feel them just a little bit separating, travelling away from each other, lengthening across the pubic bone and the groins and across the sacrum. So now we've also opened the body widthways as well as lengthways. So in this really open posture, the practice, and this can be carried on for quite a few minutes, up to about 20 minutes, is to hold the posture and to release and relax and let go of whatever doesn't need to be held or whatever doesn't need to be tense. And to bring ourselves into the present moment. Finally, let's rest the tip of the tongue on the top palate, just behind the top teeth, and relax it, soften it. Okay, let's go into the first movement. So we're going to turn the palms to face the earth, and we're going to imagine soft springs that we're going to gently press into. What we want to do is to lengthen through the elastic body. One image that might be helpful is of an accordion. So we start with the accordion closed. That means all the soft tissue of the body is kind of resting into itself. The joints are resting into themselves. We stay soft, we stay released. We gently press into the earth, press on the springs, and we lengthen up, but not to the limit. If we lengthen up to the limit, for example, like that, in a kind of military posture, we really tense up again. So we lengthen up elastically as we breathe in to about 80 or 90%, as long as it stays soft. And we breathe out and we release back. Breathe in. And out. And in. And out. We feel ourselves lengthening through the front of the legs, particularly the front thighs up to the hips, which open at the front. And release back. And we feel ourselves lengthening up the outsides of the legs, up from the ankles through the knees, up to the hips here, opening the hips softly, not stretching, just opening, and release back. And we feel ourselves lengthening up the back of the legs, the calves, backs of the thighs, the buttocks. Everything opening and release back. Coming back to the front, can we carry on the lengthening up through here? Soft, released. Settling back. Can we carry on up the sides to here? Release back. And we carry on up through the back of the legs, up through the whole back, to the top of the back. And then include gently through the neck, front, sides and back. And then everything together. The whole body is a single integrated elastic unit. When we're small children, just like young animals, we have an elastic, bouncy body. But through lack of use, through too much sitting, through the wrong kind of physical activity, we lose a lot of the elasticity in the connective tissue, in the fascia. So what we want to do is restore that elasticity, but it can take time. In the early stages, when we try to move through the elastic body. We may well find parts that we can't really move, or even we can't really feel. So maybe at the beginning, we just have to imagine it or visualize it. And slowly, with dedicated practice over probably months, elasticity is restored, and fundamentally that means we've turned the clock back and made our bodies younger. Okay, settle back down. That's part one. In part two, we turn the palms to face the lower belly. Okay? The first thing we want to do is to feel the palms, particularly the centre of the palm. If that's difficult, you can just gently rub them to wake them up. And we put our attention there and feel how the sensation in them grows, they come to life, they wake up. If we can feel that, or once we can feel that, we kind of direct that sensation inwards, deep into the lower belly, below the navel. And deep inside, we imagine a ball, a softball, or a balloon that we're going to fill with breath, and it will expand sideways, up and down, forwards and backwards. But internally, we don't have to stick our belly out. And we can help that happen, we can connect with it more easily, perhaps, if we allow the body to move as well. So settling down, focusing the sensation of the palms deep into the belly. Breathe in, fill the ball. Breathe out and just let it empty. Now, breathing is a powerful tool, so we have to be respectful of it, and the first thing is we should never force it. You can slow the breathing down, much slower than this if it's natural and comfortable, but if it's an effort, you have to go a little bit faster. Now, many of us, many people, spend much of their lives chest breathing. That means the breath only really comes down to here. The lungs don't fill properly and the diaphragm doesn't go down to its maximum. So at the beginning, when we're practicing lower abdominal breathing, it can be hard. We don't get the feeling we can take the breath down. What we want to do is ignore the chest. We don't want to consciously fill the upper chest or the mid-chest or the side chest. You want everything to go down. But it may feel at the beginning that it gets stuck here somewhere. So that's just a question of practice and of relaxation. The mind is calm, fully present, absorbed in the breath, and in the body. Okay, let's move on to part 3. So now we turn the palms upwards, like that. Not right close to the body, nice, arms nice and rounded to there. And we're going to visualise what we call the central channel, which runs from the centre of the top of the head down through the core of the body to the centre of the perineum between the legs. And as we breathe in, and as we softly lengthen through the body, we're going to stroke up the central channel. We're going to turn at the brain. We're going to breathe out and we're going to stroke down. We have a feeling of kind of scooping the pelvic basin. Stroke up the central channel. Wash over the brain, down, breathing out. It's a whole body movement. The whole body lengthens. And releases back. Calm and soothe and quieten the brain and the mind. Calming the brain and calming the heart. Good. So that's part 3, and now we can put them together as a sequence. So it's part 1 with pressing and lengthening and breathing in. Part 2, turn the palms towards the belly. Fill the belly with breath. Turn the palms to the sky, stroke up the central channel. Breathe out, release down. Breathe in. And out. Once we've developed lower abdominal breathing and feel comfortable with it, we do it throughout. So here we're still breathing into the lower abdomen. And here, of course, it's a little bit harder, but when we raise our arms, there's a tendency to want to breathe into the upper chest. Try and stay with lower abdominal breathing. So one more time, part 1. Part 2. part 3. And this time, fold the hands over each other, close over the navel, and take 3 breaths deep into the core.